I had been sorting potatoes. I started sorting potatoes. Do you need to pull the drape?
No, just to cut the glare off your glasses. You can go ahead.
I started sorting potatoes, and I first started at, is it still glare?
That's going good.
Okay, because I can say you to pull that drape over there. When I first started out sorting potatoes, I started with Ron Hunting at the Manan Co-op, and then Max Thomas at the Manan Co-op, Lynn Knighting at the Knighting's Warehouse, and then I worked for Reed Hunter down on their siding, and then for Ellen Clifford and Irvin Hancock, John T. Poole and Manan Produce of the Truth, and Wayne Poole for the Manan Produce. When I first started off sorting potatoes, I was picking culls, and when I ended, I was the head grader. Well, in 72 and 73, Darrell was a senior in high school, so he went back to school. And I went back to work at Wayne Poole's because I just couldn't stay in the house alone. And Darrell played basketball for the Rigby High School, and he was a guard on the varsity team as a guard. When they had their games in Manan, he always took me to the games, but he took me through the back door. And of course, the fellows was in there getting dressed, and he'd always say, "All right, Mom, it's time to close your eyes." So I'd close my eyes, and he'd lead me through, and then find me a seat, and I'd sit in the gym like that. Now, when Darrell was gone, away games, I would get phone calls, and people would say, "I know you're home alone. I'll be right over." And I was just petrified. And it just really frightened me so bad, and I just didn't know what to do. But when the fellows told me to get me a whistle, a referee whistle, he got me one. Bob Martin got me a referee whistle, and he says, "When they do that again, you blow on that whistle, and I'll in that phone and blow as hard as you can." He says, "Now lay you 10 to 1, they won't call you anymore." I never got any more calls after one call, because I sure did blow in it. When I finished working at the warehouses, well, Darrell was right here. He was always my right-hand man because he lived here with me. The other kids was very good to me and very helpful, but where Darrell was here, it made it much easier. He was here for me. When the warehouses closed that spring, I went to work in the lunchroom down to Midway Elementary with Alva Coleman and Leona Thorngreen were there. I only worked a short time because Darrell had some blessed calves that the pesky little brats wouldn't stay in a pasture. And the neighbor next door, Barbara Garrison, called, and she said, "Darrell's calves are out on the road." So I went out and come back and was chasing them. And I stepped into a hole. And when I went clear down to my knees. And when I got out, my back kind of hurt, but I thought, well, it'll go away. So I went back down to the school lunchroom, and I stayed there as long as I could. My pain got so bad that Alva told me to go home. So I went over to where Kay and Carla was living here in Manan, but they weren't home, so I left him a note. When I come home, I was having muscle spasms in my back. And so Kay got a hold of the Lois. Kids took me to the hospital, and the doctor, and then the doctor said, "Well, you can either stay in the hospital or go home, but you got to be quiet." So Lois says, "Well, I'll take her to my place." So she took me to her place, and I stayed at the parents. But I got so that I couldn't remember people when they come in. I would set up, be talking to them, and all of a sudden I'd lay down and go off to sleep. And Frank and Eileen came one time, and because they called Franklin, told him he better come over. And so he came over, and Stephen was a baby, and I didn't even know them. I didn't know who they was or anything. And it kind of worried the kids, so they thought maybe I better go back into the hospital. So I went back into the hospital, and Carla stayed with Joyce and Lois's kids so someone could stay with me. And for 2 weeks, I didn't even know anybody or anything. I tell you, I did some dinky-dumpy things while I was out of reality. The nurses told me that, and they sure kidded me about it at the time. I don't know why, but in my subconscious mind or somewhere or the other, I told them that they couldn't put those injections in my arms or give me any shots because I had to testify at the Watergate trial. Now, where in the world that ever come into my thoughts and minds, I will never know. And after I got through with it, they got back to the real world. They asked me what I had to do with the Watergate. trial. And I looked at them, I said, what world are you talking about? And they said, well, they told us we couldn't give you any shots because you had to testify at the Watergate trial. I guess I would get so rambunctious that it took the nurse and orderly to hold me down while they give me a shot so they could put me to sleep so I wouldn't worry about the Watergate trial. Well, when I came back to reality, it was the 24th of May in '73, and Ruth Ryan, my friend, was sitting there by the bed. It was in the evening, and I said, oh, gee, how long have you been here? And she said, oh, for quite a while. And I said, what day is it? She told me, and I started crying. She said, what are you crying? Are you in pain? And I said, no, but today's Daryl's graduation from high school, and neither Cleo and I could be there to his graduation. And she said, well, my dear, that's why I'm staying with you, so that your brothers and sisters could be there. And I said, oh, Ruth, bless your heart. I said, I appreciate this very kindly. And then after the graduation, the kids came in, and Daryl had graduated, and Becky Walker was with him. Becky Sue Walker, that was a girl Daryl was dating, and Max and Joyce and Lois and Mark, Kay and Carla. They come in the door, and Darren walked over to me. He says, hi, Mom. And I said, hi, Darren, how are you? He looked at me, and he said, do you know who I am? I said, well, my Lord, you're my son, aren't you? And he says, well, yeah. And Joyce said, do you know who I am? I said, well, my gosh, yes, you're Joyce. And that thing standing next to you is Max. I said, and there's Mark and Lois and Kay and Carla. And they all started crying. I said, what the crap are you crying for? And they said, oh, you've come back to reality. I said, we didn't know whether you was going to make it back or not. And I said, oh, honey, I said, the good Lord has work for me to do here yet. They had to send me back. I had to come back. But I said, I'm sure glad to be back where I am. Well, they let me out of the hospital. While I was in the hospital, they found out that I had a kidney infection there, but they were just more or less, I don't know really what they were treating me for, but I still had the backache. And well, when I came home after 2 weeks in the hospital, I just didn't seem to get better. I can remember Daryl taking Grandma Wheeler and I down to see the parade on the 4th of July, because they always have a big parade in Idaho Falls, but I didn't enjoy it one bit, and Daryl and Grandma just did everything in the world for me, but I just didn't enjoy it at all. Well, on the 17th of July, 1973, I got up that morning, went to the bathroom, and when I tried to get up, I couldn't move. And Daryl was sleeping in his bedroom, and I just kept hollering at him, and finally he came in, and I said, Daryl, I can't move. And so he just picked me up and carried me into the couch, and he got a hold of Lois and Cindy, and they come to me to the hospital. And by that time, I was paralyzed from the waist down. They run all kinds of tests on me, and they put me on the second floor for a while, and while I was there, well, there was 2 nurses, and one of them was quite elderly, and she didn't know that I was paralyzed. She pulled the sheet out from under me, and I went with it, and I just slid right off the bed, and it scared the poor lady. And they weren't very big ladies, and here I was, down on the floor, and she said, are you hurt? And I got to laughing, and I said, no. And she said, oh my gosh, I can't get you up. And so they went and got an orderly, and he came in and picked me up and set me in a chair, and then they made the bed. Oh, she says, honey, I'll probably lose my job. And I said, oh, I won't tell him if you won't. I said, you didn't know. I said, nobody told you I was paralyzed. And she said, oh, dear, I just don't know why I didn't. She said, I should have checked. And I said, well, hey, don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it, so why should you be? Anyway, it was just kind of funny, but they got the bed all cleaned up, and she put me back in the bed. And then Dr. Johnson came in to see me that day, and he said, I can't understand this back pain. He says, there's got to be something more to it. So he called in Dr. Charles Bogue, who's an orthopedic doctor, and Dr. Bogue came in, and they did a myelogram on me, and they found that there was some disc pinching the nerve in the lower part of my back, and I'd have to have surgery immediately. Well, I really didn't know what was going on, because they had already given me a shot, And Joyce came in, and she's, what in the world's going on? And Dr. Johnson said, well, did somebody at the desk call you and tell you your mother had that immediate surgery? Joyce said, no. And he said, well, you better get your family in here because she has. We're getting her ready to go up to surgery. And Dr. Vogt says that it's very essential she had it done now. So Joyce, they got it in there, and I was more 3 sheets under the wind than I was where I should be in reality. And I remember asking Theron to give me a blessing, and so he did. But I was so far sedated that I didn't know what he said. And the nurses said to me, she said, that was one of the most wonderful blessings, beautiful blessings I've ever heard anybody give. She said it came right from his heart, and he was talking to his Heavenly Father to please have the doctors help his mother through this surgery. And when they performed this surgery, they removed the 2 discs from my back. And Dr. Vogt told me that, and told them, all the family, that had they had done this when I first went in with that loss of memory in my kidney infection, they'd run a myelogram on me then, I would have never been paralyzed. But they just didn't pick up on it or, realize that. And then when I was in the hospital, our ward had a ward fast. Bishop Cottle was a bishop, and we had a ward fast. And Theron said he'd certainly give a beautiful prayer the whole ward fast, and then they went up to the church house and did that. And after they had the ward fast, Bob Martin, who was one of the was a therapist, he said, Theron, I can't believe it. He said, your mother has just made a complete change. He said, she's sure doing a lot better. And he says, it's just really wonderful.